The shape-shifting skinwalker of Native American legend takes on various forms across tribes, but most agree on what it looks like. A deformed, animalistic body, a marred face, and blazing, orange-red eyes. The thought of a shape-shifting humanoid-like entity terrorizing families in the American Southwest might sound like something out of a low-budget horror movie, but the legend of the skinwalker does have very deep roots in Native American lore. Up until 1996, the legend of the skinwalker was mostly reserved to Native American reservations and had not really been introduced to the rest of America. But it was in that year that the Desert News published an article titled Frequent Flyers that described a Utah family's traumatizing experience with a creature on their land. But all of that would seem tame compared to what would happen just 18 months after the Sherman family had owned the land. Terry Sherman, the father of the family, was walking his dogs one night around the ranch when he encountered a wolf, but according to Terry, this was no ordinary wolf. This wolf was said to be at least 3 times bigger than a normal one, and also had glowing red eyes. The wolf also stood unfazed by 3 close-range shots that Sherman is said to have fired into it. The Sherman family would sell the ranch in 1996, but that was only the start of the trauma that would be experienced on that property. After they moved out, the ranch would change hands several times, and each new owner would experience and report similar encounters with these creatures before it would finally be renamed Skinwalker Ranch and turn into a hub of paranormal research. And while these paranormal investigators are approaching the ranch with good intentions, it is said that what they are looking for has a history that is hundreds of years old. The Navajo Skinwalker. So, what is a skinwalker? As the Navajo English Dictionary explains, the word skinwalker was translated to literally mean, by means of it, it goes on all fours. But apart from the Navajo, several other tribes have their own legends involving the skinwalker. Some tribes believe that the skinwalkers were born of a benevolent medicine man who abused indigenous magic for evil. In this legend, the medicine man is given mythical powers of evil, and while it does vary from tribe to tribe and tradition to tradition, what they all have in common is the power and the ability to turn into or possess an animal or a person. And other tribes believe that a man, woman, or child could become a skinwalker should they commit any kind of deep-rooted sin or disrespect towards their ancestors. Skinwalkers are described as being primarily animalistic when it comes to their physical traits, and that goes for their human form as well. It's also been cited that they're nearly impossible to kill, except with a bullet or knife dipped in white ash. Little more is known about these beings because most tribes are reluctant to discuss it with outsiders. They actually often refuse to discuss it amongst each other. And this is probably because traditional belief says that speaking of these beings is not only bad luck, but it makes the appearance of them much more likely to happen. In 1996, a couple of outsiders were introduced to the legend after a series of unexplainable events occurred at their new ranch. Terry and Gwen Sherman first observed UFOs of varying sizes hovering above their property. Then 7 other cows died or disappeared. One was reportedly found with a hole cut into the center of its left eyeball, and another had its rectum carved out. The cattle the Shermans were able to find dead were always surrounded by an odd chemical smell. One was found dead in a clump of trees, and the branches above it appeared to have been sawed off. One of the cows that vanished had left tracks in the snow that suddenly stopped, and Terry Sherman said if it's snow, it's hard for a 12 or 1400 pound animal to just walk without leaving tracks, or for it to stop and walk backwards completely and never miss their tracks. It was just gone. It was incredibly bizarre. But to me, perhaps the most terrifying were the voices that Terry Sherman heard while walking his dogs late one night. Sherman reported that the voices spoke in a language that he didn't recognize. He estimated that they came from about 25 feet away, but he couldn't see a thing. His dogs went berserk, they barked, and then ran back hastily to the house, leaving him alone. And after the Shermans eventually sold the property, these incidents only continued. Self-proclaimed UFO enthusiast and billionaire Robert Bigelow would buy the ranch for $200,000 in 1996. It was then that he established the NIDS team, or the National Institute for Discovery Science, and their goal was to assess and validate what exactly had been going on at the ranch and provide evidence. A year into owning the property, on March 12, 1997, one of Bigelow's employees, Dr. Colm Keller, spotted a large humanoid figure in a tree, and this is what he had to say. The large creature laid there motionless, almost casually up in a tree. The only indication of the beast's presence was the penetrating yellow light of the unblinking eyes as they stared fixedly back into the light. Keller fired at the creature with a rifle, but it fled. Claw marks on the tree and imprints on the ground were said to be left right where the creature was. And this is only a few days after another unnerving incident. The ranch manager and his wife had just tagged a calf before their dog began to act very strangely. They went back to investigate just 45 minutes later, and in the field in broad daylight, they found a calf and its body cavity completely empty. Most people know if an 84-pound calf is killed, there's blood spread around it, but it was as if all the blood had been removed in a very thorough way. This distressing activity continued well into the summer, and ultimately Bigelow and his research team experienced over 100 incidents on the property, but they couldn't seem to amass any kind of evidence that scientific publication would accept with any kind of credibility. Bigelow sold the ranch to a company called Adamantium Holdings for $4.5 million in 2016. Now, there are countless stories about skinwalkers online, from Reddit to Facebook and everywhere else, and while it's nearly impossible to tell how truthful these accounts are, they seem to always have the same descriptions in common. A four-legged beast with a near human scarred face and orange-red glowing eyes, and it's always seen silently stalking them. Those who have seen the creatures are also said that they make a loud, unforgettable noise. This is often described as a screech or a scream. So I have to know what you guys think. Do these creatures exist? Have you ever seen one? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, because I honestly have no idea. So I think for now, for tonight, we're going to have to add the legend of the Skinwalkers to our never-ending, always growing Tales from the Dark.